right, welcome back. We are here today with Justin Breen. Justin, thank you for taking some time to join us on the Gravity Podcast.
Yeah, your unique ability is to lovingly dream, explore, connect, innovate, and effortlessly create powerful outcomes. And the purpose of my life is to be a connecting superhero for every visionary, abundance, investment mindset entrepreneur and share their stories for the world. So it's pretty collaborative. So very excited to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So for those that don't know, Justin and I are friends through Strategic Coach. And so that is actually my unique ability he just read there that I have created through that program, which has been a program we both have gotten a lot out of. You've heard me talk about on the show before, and I know it's been a big part of your work too.
Yeah, I should give a shout out to Abundance 360 as well, both in that. And it's been really collaborative with those two groups. Most of the folks I talk to, Kolbe, Kolbe, it's how your brain works. And most of the folks I talk to are 7, 8, 9, 10 quick starts with very low follow through. So they have to hire 1 million people to follow through on what they're doing. And then my brain, I'm the very rare entrepreneur that has high quick start and high follow through. So I just say it, do it. And it's just very collaborative. It's very collaborative with the purpose of my life and then with your unique ability. It just makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Well, let's talk about your life. Let's start at the beginning. That's been kind of our format here. Tell me a little bit about your early days, where you're from, your family dynamics, anything that kind of jumps out from your childhood.
Yeah, I think everyone has a unique story. I think mine is really unique just because, I was a journalist for 20 years. So most of my days, talking to people like you and simplifying their story. And, my father was 61 when I was born and my mom was 27. So a 34-year difference. And, my father was a World War II hero. He'd be 105 if he was alive now. And he was shot down 8 times in combat. Multiple times he was in the plane without a parachute. And he came from nothing. And wound up becoming an attorney in the Nuremberg trials, became the president of an insurance company. And while he was fighting in World War II, he kept a diary of the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest, fighting in the battle, which was a very, very deadly battle, toward the end of World War II on the Belgian-German border. And I write exactly like he does. Boom, 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 inform and entertain, no fluff, no BS, just result, result, result. And I found that diary after he died. It's my most cherished possession. So that's my dad. And then my mom was 27. So in his late 50s, drunk driver hit him head on, should have been killed, broke every bone in his body, survived. Because you don't make excuses, you just figure it out. And then my mom was his nurse. So my mom literally nursed him back to health. And then most of my days talking to, top entrepreneurs in the world like you. That's most of my day. And I've never met anyone in my life ever with more hustle than my mom, ever. So, she's the ultimate survive and thrive, the ultimate. So I'm just a combination of that. So
yeah, tell me, what was it like? It's interesting, your parents come together, there's a big age difference. Your dad's an older dad, and I'm kind of, seeing that happen in my world now, friends that waited and are having kids late. But, I think my mother had children in a second marriage in her mid-30s. And at that time, it was like not real common. So what was it like, for your dad to be older, significantly older? What was it like as a kid? Do you have any kind of memories of that or anything around, the age difference or the kind of having an older parent?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm an 8 fact finder. I'll try not to over fact find, but so I've really got about 8 years, like from age 5 to 13 when he died. So I got 8 years, and he was, I don't want to say he was retired, but he wasn't, he was home far more than my mom. My mom, again, endless hustle. Endless. So very career oriented. So he was home more than my mom. And my father pretty much every day would say, the cream rises to the top, the cream rises to the top. So because he came from nothing, cream rises to the top. So I only partner with the cream that rises to the top, or the people that they'll do whatever it takes to get there. And it's a fundamental thing. And I just think from having that type of wisdom growing up. And I'll say this too about strategic coach very quickly. Like Dan Sullivan, I think the reason I like him so much, he's 77 now. So I really should be 77. I mean, my dad was born in 1916. So like Dan's the closest person that I can really think of that really reminds me of my dad, like the closest, like universally liked, endless wisdom. My dad was a simplifier. No tolerance for nonsense. Like, so that's why I think I like Dan so much.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you were like as a kid. You know, it's nice. It's actually an interesting thing. You know, when you say that your dad was home a lot, you know, what a nice kind of byproduct of having an older dad. You know, he was around a lot. You know, tell me a little bit more about kind of, you know, what you were into and where your interests were, and you know, a little bit more about kind of your childhood upbringing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You'd be a good journalist. You know, I've spent most of my life as a journalist, and so it's constantly interviewing people. And I always talk about, the only question I always ask is who your parents were and what they did, because it always makes people think of where they come from. And if you know where you come from, you know where you are, and then you know where you're going. But it starts with where you come from. And it makes you think about that. And, you know, my father was a voracious reader. I mean, oh my God. And so I became a voracious reader. I still am. There's books all over my house. You know, endlessly curious. My father's endlessly curious. I'm endlessly curious. We would read the Chicago Tribune, you know, sports section. I became a sports editor for the first part of my journalistic life, and just endlessly reading, endlessly trying to find out interesting facts and figures. And that's never stopped. I mean, I'm basically the same person I was as a child, with even more curiosity, and my wife with them even more childish than I was now than I was as a child.
Okay, so a lot of curiosity, reading. You know, tell me a little bit, you know, more about kind of as you get into high school, where your interests lie. You know, what kinds of things start to pique your curiosity.
So my sons are 9 and 7. They're 9 and 7. And actually, my 9-year-old is a 3296, so he has almost the same Colby as you do, which is very interesting. And so, like, that's like pioneer in Colby world. So, like, I can see him being like you for sure. But so to answer your question, the reason why I know that and I spend so much time with my children is I know what it's like to not have a dad around. And so high school, my dad died right in the middle of 8th grade year. So right before high school. So high school was not the greatest time because I was lost. I mean, I was just lost. And I think that continued in college. You know, I was in a fraternity. You know, I still have a lot of good friends from my fraternity days, but I really never found myself until starting Entrepreneur Journey. Cause like, I just never really fit in with normal, I guess, quote unquote, normal society. And high school is, you know, that's the most normal thing out there in terms of like common education, cliques, all that stuff. And I just never fit in that model. So it's been good to find my tribe in this entrepreneur world over the last 4.5 years.
Yeah, you know, it's a funny thing. My father-in-law said once that you're going to make a better adult than a child, right. And you're gonna be an adult a lot longer than you're gonna be a child. So, you know, that's the good news. It is, you know, I think it's important to kind of just highlight that a little bit because I think there's a lot of people out there that are trying to fit in are trying to be somebody they're not because of the societal expectations and the conditioning. And when you're not, quote, normal, when you're not somebody who's maybe into whatever kids are into in high school, whether that be athletics or partying or whatever it is that you might not be fitting into, it can feel really lonely. I've seen this, throughout the years with my own kids at different times, different places. When you go to college, do you join a fraternity? Do you, right? Like there's so much kind of momentum in the conditioning of society that it can really take people with them. Sometimes, down a path that's just really not them at all, and they might live their whole lives that way. So, I'm just curious if there's anything more there to share kind of around, that experience.
Well, 100%, because how my brain works, I think this is because my Colby, I hear blah, 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 and then immediately simplify into patterns. That's just how my brain works. And so I just see the same patterns over and over. So people like you and me were usually, but not always, aliens within our own family, aliens within our own community, and aliens within our own vertical. Nobody really understands us except the top performing entrepreneurs on the planet, because, maybe the people I partner are, maybe percentage-wise 1 out of 1,000, 0.1%. But the 0.1%, the people like you, are the ones that create everything, create the investments that actually employ and help everyone else. So I just partner with people like you because that's how I help the world. But 999 out of 1,000 people have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's one. That's one. Two, there's two fundamental reasons why most people, if they are miserable with their lives, there's two fundamental reasons why. One, they're doing something 8 to 10 hours a day that they don't like to do and are not good at. So if you're doing something 8 to 10 hours a day, every single day or 5 days a week that you're not good at or you don't like to do, you're going to be miserable. Okay, so that's one. Two, and this is the tragedy, is that you actually find out what you like to do and what you're good at, and then you never do anything about it. And to me, one, that's inexcusable. Again, from where my parents came, endless hustle, I'm just a product of that. But two, that's just tragic. Like, why would you not want to do what you're really good at and what you like to do? Because then you're providing value to the world. And most people, the bottom line is most people will not take that extra step to do it. They won't do it because they're surrounded by, to your point earlier, they're surrounded by other cost scarcity. They're surrounded by conformists. And people like us are the opposite of we're the opposite of conformists.
Yeah. It's really an interesting point. It's one of the reasons why, and maybe, this is going to come up a bunch just because of our mutual passion for these groups, abundance and coach. I even find it to be true kind of in certain geography. I live in Columbus, Ohio. It's a very Midwestern, right?
I'm Chicago.
Right. And, when I'm out in California, things feel different. And it's not just the air and the nature, it's the way that people engage with each other. And, look, wherever you are, there you are. I can certainly see all the benefits of being in the Midwest and all of the things that I've personally benefited from by living here. And I love it here. I love to raise my family here. But I do often feel when I'm in the room at Coach or I'm at Abundance 360, there's like a level setting of mindset that kind of automatically makes you feel a little more alive, a little more yourself, a little more, safe and open and transparent, right? And connecting. And I don't know, there's something really to that, this idea that you might not actually do the thing that that you love. And also spend 8 to 10 hours a day. And this, I think, applies not just to your career, but, to those early days too, when you're in school, when you're, in college, why not study the things that you're excited by? Why not do the thing that you're interested in? I mean, the conditioning, I think, is so strong that it has people really living their entire lives out of integrity. And I can say, I've done it too. I'm still trying to find the bottom of what's, really my fullest expression. It's tough work.
It's tough work, and most people won't. That's my point. They won't have the courage to power through the fear to do it. And that's why I only partner with people like you, because you'll do it. You will do it. And I was a journalist for 20 years. So when you're a journalist, you don't get into that for money. It's all about purpose. And being an entrepreneur, it's still the same purpose. I just get to partner with the people that I want to partner with, and it's really interesting when you're able to connect the dots and eliminate the cost scarcity and attract the abundant investment visionary, that everything changes. Everything changes. And I love reading. Like I said, the book I just finished pretty recently is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. For those who don't know, Viktor Frankl survived the Holocaust, and he wrote about it. And he was a clinical psychologist, one of the greatest who's ever lived. I think Dan Sullivan's like a modern day Viktor Frankl, and I don't say that lightly. So Viktor Frankl talks about the prisoners in the Holocaust who died. They had lost their hope for the future, and once they had done that, they would die within a day or two. And the key for finding meaning in life is always have this bigger and better future, and always try to find something bigger and better. And that gives you this meaning. This gives you this purpose. And to your point about the rooms that we're in, A360 and Coach, it's just a room full of people, whether it's a real room in California or in Chicago or Toronto, or a virtual room where everyone, at least most of the people, have the same mindset to look for a much bigger and better future. Not because they're not happy with their life, but because there's so much other cool things out there to just try and strive for, which is great. That's where I want to be all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So talk a little bit about kind of that early career. I mean, you've said that you spent 20 years as a journalist. What took you into journalism? And if it's not for the money, then, what was it that really got you down that path to begin with?
Yeah. I mean, again, I just think because of certainly how my father, I found the diary after he died, and I write exactly like he does, exactly. I mean, it's different verbiage, different types of words, but it's the same. It's just boom, 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 boom. And so, I'm just endlessly curious, and I'm endlessly fascinated. I'm fascinated talking to people like you, because brains like yours change the world, and then my brain simplifies, execute, simplify, execute, simplify, execute. And that curiosity, it's only magnified. And journalism was a way to really satisfy my endless curiosity. I mean, when I was a journalist, I would write 2 to 3 stories on deadline every day. So that was 20 years, 2 to 3 stories on deadline every day. The book I wrote in 43 days. People are like, "How did you do that?" I go, "Easy. That's just boom, 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 boom." And the second book, which I'll work on soon. The goal is to have it done in less than 43 days. Less than 43.
Yeah. So it's really just that kind of curiosity. What I'm hearing you say is curiosity, and then just kind of the pace, the commitment to just getting things done. You just kind of, love the kind of the energy of being on deadline and knocking things out. Yeah. And so, I mean, to do something for 20 years, we were just talking about how, you can find yourself, living in your entire life doing something that might not be really it for you. But I'm curious, for you, having done that for 20 years, was that something that for most of that 20-year period you were really in and enjoying and passionate about? Or how far along in that journey did you start to think, maybe there's something else out there for me?
Right. So that's an excellent question. One, the stories that my firm does now, there's literally no difference than literally the stories I do now, no difference than what I did as a journalist. I never understood if it bleeds, it leads. Again, people like us are usually aliens in their own community, family, and verticals. So I'm an entrepreneur who happens to be a journalist. I never understood negative news. I still don't. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm still a journalist. And endlessly curious with that. But I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I still don't know what an S corp is. All that business owner stuff, I'm not a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. And so I'll just give you the quick story. February 10th, 2017, had job salary cut in half. Nothing I'd done wrong. Just that's what happens in journalism. And so tried to find a job, couldn't find a job. Incorporated April 16th, 2017. And so over the next 6 weeks, reached out to 5,000 people to find first 5 clients. So 1 out of 1,000 said yes. Interesting now that I partner with 0.1%. So 0.1% said yes. Got 5th client, resigned the next day. And then Robert Feeder, he's the top media columnist in the Midwest of the United States. He did a story. I started my own firm. So most people can't do that. I mean, they can't do that. But entrepreneur happens to be a journalist. That's just entrepreneur life. If you can't do that, don't become an entrepreneur. But so I was never meant to be a journalist as a journalist. I just didn't know that until my job salary got cut in half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was a little more kind of out of necessity. I mean, that kind of initial, spark happened, or that jump made, was something that kind of, I like to say that, people become entrepreneurs or make a major life career change, either because they're on fire, excited about something, or they're drowning where they are. And it's an interesting jump you made. I mean, you were to some degree kind of forced to do it. But you end up really transferring exactly what you were doing, your skill set. Like you said, you're still writing the same way, the same kind of stuff.
Right.
But you do it in the entrepreneurial world. And you mentioned, and I love to really highlight this for people, because I think entrepreneurship often gets a little bit misunderstood and
glorified.
Well, it gets glorified, but also I think, this thing about the S corp and the, kind of the technical business, I think a lot of people think they don't know anything about business, therefore they can't be entrepreneurs. And that's really not true either.
Nothing. I know zero. I had zero business background. Zero. I never took one business class. Didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I didn't know you had to pay taxes 2 times a year. Like I still don't know a lot of that stuff. And embracing the who, not how concept. I just find people to do that for me, because that's not in my zone of genius. But that kind of stuff is business owner stuff. I've never been a business owner. I never will be. I don't care about employee count, revenue, office space. I've never cared about any of that stuff. It's totally me. It's all about purpose. And I only ask myself 2 questions every day. 2 questions. 1, did I have at least one good experience with my family? And then 2, did my network grow on a global level? And so, certainly since starting my company, every day that's been yes to both of those. And I found that all this other stuff, this whatever that stuff is, it just kind of takes care of itself. If I have a good family day and then a good network day, network day.
I want to talk about both those, but why don't you just kind of really lay out for everybody exactly what it is that you are doing? This entrepreneurial leap that you've made. Explain to people exactly what you're doing today.
Sure. Yeah, I'll land the plane. Formula for creating a successful global company, it's very simple. I'm just a simplifier to patterns. So you see a problem, create solution, problem solve, successful global company. That's the simple formula. So first company, which I started 4.5 years ago with zero business background, zero. Now a global company that only works with people like you, or the ones who will make the investment to become someone like you. So I was a journalist for 20 years. Became a master journalist, created my entire business model based on how PR firms annoyed me for 20 years. So saw a problem, created a solution, problem solved, successful global company. And the second one just launched with a business partner who I'd met virtually in Strategic Coach 10X. We're creating LinkedIn without the BS. So all these platforms let everybody in, and people at the highest level, they don't have time for that. They just want the result. So we're creating LinkedIn without the BS. And that will be really exciting because platform's almost done. And all it is technology platform for my brain. It's just 100,000x for what I'm already doing. A lot of fun.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about the PR piece. How do people engage with you? How do you work? What makes you unique in that space? And I know that, we've talked about this and you do have a unique approach. What is kind of underneath why you're so successful on the PR front?
Yeah, it's interesting. You're too fact finder, but you asked high fact finder questions. That's really interesting to me.
Well, I'm just curious. That's all.
Right.
The whole point of the podcast is, because I love learning from people like you, and I'm curious.
Right, this is what I mean. Like like you'd be a good journalist. And most journalists are really high fact, but so at the highest level, there's no competition, only collaboration. So I say that because my company's process is literally on the website. It's 4 steps. Like there's no gimmicks or tricks. I actually don't know what PR firms do other than annoy journalists. I don't know. So I'll give you some background. So as a journalist, every single day as a journalist, you receive hundreds of useless press releases from people you don't know. Okay. So they're useless because they talk about what you do and not who you are. And nobody cares about what you do. But if they do care about who you are, they will care about what you do. So my firm, again, this is literally on the website. There's no tricks. Feel free to use it. Whoever wants it, take it. But my firm creates actual newsworthy stories, similar to what I do as a journalist. It becomes a link on the client's website under news or blog. So look like a story you see in the Chicago Tribune, New York Times, whatever that is. Take that link, pitch it to media. Usually my partners are global, but many times national, regional. And then media is interested because the story serves the journalist or the podcast host, not the client. So media will be interested. And then intro. It's just result. So it's a lot of fun because it just cuts through all the nonsense and just gets results.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, having been on the other side of that and working with PR firms and, doing press releases, to hear the journalist perspective is really, pretty interesting. And, what I'm kind of struck by is even going back to your dad, you have a very direct, no bullshit way of being, right? Even, the way that you speak, you speak fast, you speak clear, concise, direct, right?
Boom.
Right. And that's like, it's an interesting thing. Maybe it's genetics, maybe those years with your dad, you got to take that in, embody that. Maybe, that became your way of being for any number of reasons. But it is, and, you've mentioned the word simplifier. And for people that aren't in coach who don't really understand that, that's really what you're doing. You're simplifying. You simplify kind of your way of being, and you've figured out how to embody that in your business. And, that's really an interesting thing, just to kind of highlight that you're able to really pull out your kind of your mannerisms, your way of being in the world, and express that in your work in a way that does create a solution for other people. It's fascinating, really. I mean, you're just your business is just an expression of you.
It's just there's no So one, that's a really good simplification. Howard. I think Howard Getson was on your. I think he was on your podcast.
Yeah. Howard was on. Yeah.
So he's a genius, and I don't say that term lightly. I don't flip.
No, he actually is a genius. I agree.
Yeah, he's a genius. Like he's MIT. So my brain takes MIT brains, I think, or Harvard brains, or Ivy League brains, and then I'll diss both of our schools. I can turn it into University of Arizona or University of Illinois brains, and humans I can do that very easily. And MIT brains like that they're appreciative because they can't talk to humans. But my brain can bridge it. Okay, so that's what I think is funny about A360. You got MIT, Harvard guy talking about him. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but I can simplify it for humans. But so I was talking to Howard. I'm like, oh man, I'm really struggling with this simplifier versus multiplier thing. And he provided a great gift, and I think it's a gift for a lot of entrepreneurs, perhaps like you as well. So he's like, Justin, you're 100% simplifier, but your companies are 100% multipliers. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. Because that's how Dan is. Dan Sullivan's 100% simplifier. Coach is 100% multiplier. I'm 100% simplifier. My PR firm is 100% multiplier. And then my new company is called BrEpic Network. That's a gajillion percent multiplier. So, but at my core, I'm just a simplifier. Peter Diamandis, he's 100% simplifier. Abundance 360 is 100% multiplier. All his companies are 100% multipliers. And, but to your point, like, I just live in my zone of genius. I'm either spending time with my family or friends, mostly my family, or I'm in my zone of genius. And what I will say, because I can simplify and see patterns, is almost always folks with your Kolbe score with an 8, 9, 10 quick start with a 2, 3 follow through, they're amazed by this. Because they're like, how do you just totally focus on this? I'm like, well, because I'm 8, 6, 7, 1 Kolbe. I have high quick start and high follow through. And in terms of my strength finders, I'm 32 out of 34 in ideation. Almost dead last. Very low in futuristic. But if I have a good idea, it's activate, maximize, achieve. Those are my top 3. So there's no deviation. It's just result. That's why I like partnering with people like you, because most of the time, not always, it's idea, all over the place. And then my brain immediately simplifies, immediately activates, immediately simplifies, immediate intro, and it just works. It just works.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of freedom in kind of understanding these tools. Some people might, not be interested or feel, like it's too focused on business or it's overwhelming. But actually, there's a lot of freedom that's created, even in relationships. When you're when you know somebody and you know how they think, you can understand why they're coming from it that way, and it's it removes the friction in the relationship when you can really 100%. Just know somebody.
I'll land the plane for the listeners, because this again, and you really simplified it as well. My companies are just a representation of how I live my life every day. And so the one thing I like strength finders. I love print, which is your unconscious motivators. I'd love to know your print score if you've taken it. So
I have taken it. I also love print, but I am too low of a fact finder to remember my score.
You don't remember it, right? I knew you weren't going to remember that, but that's okay. After this, send it to me. You're probably an 8.3 like me, but so the one that's the most important to me is Kolbe. KOLB, A index, red button, $55 takes 20 minutes. Okay, so that's landing the plane. And I write down 2 things before I meet with someone. 1 is their name, and 2 is their Kolbe score, because I know who I'm talking to. Well, almost without exception. And so I'm an 8.671 Kolbe, which that's a unicorn score. I've never met another one. My wife is an 8.742. So she and I are both 8 fact finders. Her follow through is 7, mine's 6. She's a 4 quick start, which is much lower than my 7. And then we're both very low in implementers. So if you ask us to build something, that's going to be a disaster. Whereas you're a 5 implementer and construction makes architecture makes perfect sense. And so that Kolbe will match your scores. So with my wife, they matched their scores with a report. And the funniest part was they're like, Justin, we're not asking you to change your personality, but please do not walk out in the middle of a conversation when your wife's talking. My wife's name's Sarah. When Sarah's talking to you. And because I just want the answer, but my wife has higher follow through than me, and she wants to just follow through on the conversation. So I've actually, very importantly, implemented this into my life where I really pay attention to what she's saying, and I will not walk out of the room anymore. And that's Kolbe is applicable to anything, any relationship.
Absolutely. Okay, this new business is, LinkedIn no BS is your word. I don't know if that's the tagline, but maybe it should be.
Man, that's what I say. So yeah, I think that's really what it is.
We'll talk about, this is very much a relationship business. Talk a little bit about this new venture.
To simplify it, it's just technology, a platform for what I'm already doing. I mean, that's why I like A360, because one of the, every other month we had these 2-hour conversations. So one of the topics was how to build a platform. So that's really what it is. That's really what it is. But again, you see a problem, create solution, problem solve, successful global company. So I like LinkedIn, I like Facebook, I like Twitter. On LinkedIn especially, I think I have over 27,000 followers. Unfortunately, 99% of it is it's just spam BS. It's just spam. And people like us, we just want the connection. We just want the result. We don't necessarily need to spend 7 years building a relationship before any action is taken. We just want the action. And being the buyer, I'm just the buyer. Haven't done outbound sales or anything in years. Companies pay my firm and people are signing up for this platform, but it's not selling. We're the buyer, the people we want to hang out with. And the really exciting part for me is I have a business partner who I've literally only met one time in person. We had a giant launch party for it at Chicago Yacht Club. He's in California. His Colby is a 1596. He's a one fact finder. He's the only one fact finder I've ever met. And he's full backstage, meaning like he's in charge of, finding the people to build the platform and all that stuff. I can barely tie my shoes. And I just talk about it, which I'm really good at. And so we're taking the entire strategic coach model where Dan is full front stage. He talks about it. And his wife, business partner, Babs, is full backstage. And we just incorporate into what we're doing with this. And it's just so great because it's all collaboration. It's all collaboration.
Yeah. And I think collaboration, it's something you and I have both gotten a lot of understanding of the power of collaboration. You've also mentioned, who, not how, and the importance of finding people that are in their unique abilities so that you can combine your unique abilities and create, powerful outcomes, right? This is the unique ability for me. And I think this is just still, and for people that don't know, Dan Sullivan's Who Not How book is a great read in partnership with Ben Hardy. We've talked about it on the podcast before, but I think people often get stuck. I know, including myself, in the how, right? And this is just a brilliant example of you finding a who, and both in your unique abilities, doing the thing that you're naturally great at and love to do that's opposite of your partners. And together, you're creating something really effortlessly in a lot of ways.
Oh my God, such good simplification. My business partner's name is Mark Fujiwara. And again, I'm 8671 Colby. He's 1596. That's complete. That's the most collaborative Colby I've ever heard. And he is a visionary integrator. I'm an integrating visionary. He loves the backstage stuff, but he has the vision. But I was talking to him the other day. We meet every Friday. I was talking to him the other day. I'm like, why is this so easy? Like, this isn't even hard. And it's because I'm not getting out of my lane. I'm not straying. And I've always been like that. In this case, it's just collaborating with someone who's there's no way I could ever have done this. It's impossible to do this without collaboration. My first company, it's easy. It's just my unique ability. It's simple. It's like breathing for me. But to create something so much bigger, there's no way. And here's my other point too, is that again, I'm almost dead last in ideation in Strength Finders, almost dead last. Most of the folks I talk to are at least top 5 in ideation, and they're top 5 in futuristic. But they have some mix of activate, maximize in there. So they're living off in future land, but they'll actually activate it. But if I do have a good idea, which is very rare, by the way, but if I do have a good one, I will activate, maximize, achieve. I will not overthink it. I will not feel it. I will go for it, go for it, go for it, go for it, go for it. And that's why, been an entrepreneur for a little over 4 years, have one very successful global company. And the new one will be, it'll be way more successful than the first one. And then that'll just lead to more cool collaborations. It'll just grow upon itself.
It will. And it's kind of funny, actually, in some ways. I've never thought about this before, but not being somebody who has a ton of great ideas might actually work to your benefit because you have the activator there. So when you do have one, you do it, and you don't have to worry about juggling, a dozen ideas. You just you get it and you go.
Right.
Okay, good. Let me switch gears a little bit on you because I know how important it is for you. And you mentioned this being, one of a few, maybe a couple things that you really focus your life on. That is being a parent, your family. Talk a little bit about, what it's like being a dad, your family, you're in conjunction with being an entrepreneur. Talk a little bit about kind of that part of your life, which I know is incredibly important.
Yeah, so I do a lot of interviews, which I'm very grateful for. This is definitely one of the best ones I've ever been on. So kudos to you. I mean, you really think at a high level. Yeah, you're welcome. I mean,
thanks, Justin.
Do a great job. So I spend a lot of my time, and even as a journalist, I spend a lot of my time talking to very high level people, very wealthy people. And then I always ask, how's your family? And not always, certainly not always, but many times, folks like us, like, I never had a family, or I never see my family, never saw. And I'll tell you, the hurt, either you see it or you hear it. And I will never be one of those people. I'm a dad who happens to be an entrepreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur who happens to be a dad. There's a fundamental difference. And I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I know that have let entrepreneur life destroy their family life. I will never be one of those people. That's just not, that is not going to happen. That will never happen. It's just not, I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I've talked to. They're like, entrepreneur life destroyed my first marriage and almost destroyed my second. And then it made me not talk to my children. I'm like, sorry, I am just not that person. I'm just not. And I think really what it fundamentally comes down to is I know what my dad was not a good dad. He was a great dad, not a good dad, great dad. There's a big difference between good and great. And I know what it's like to not have someone like that around in fundamental years of growing up, high school, college, beyond. And I'm just not going to sacrifice my family life for entrepreneur life. I won't do it. There's just no way that will ever happen, ever.
I think that's really nice to hear. And I see you living that way. So I know you actually put the actions to the words. And I think it's really important for people to know that you don't have to, that you're actually out there creating 2 global companies and have a lot more ahead of you that's going to happen and be done in your lifetime.
Well, you too. I'm just learning from people like you. I mean, pretty much.
Well, when you're around people that share those values, it does make it easier to live into. I think there's, kind of an old narrative that is that you kind of had to, save life for the weekends or vacations or retirement. And,
No.
You and I are blessed to know another system, which is, that you can have free days and that you can collaborate and you can, be in your unique ability and you can share that with your family. And that, I fortunately learned that, but I was young when my kids when I had kids. And I was truly, career entrepreneur, in my work in a different way that had me not as present with my family when my kids were little until I learned that didn't have to be the way, that there was another way. Thank God, I got to catch myself and really shift and be with my family in a way that is way better. So it can be done. And Justin, I see, Epic Business sitting there in the background. Do you want to share with the listeners anything about your book or anything else that is really important to you that you're up to today now and kind of coming down the pike here?
Yeah, thanks for asking. The first line of my book after the prologue is, if you're someone who doesn't put your family first, put the book down. I can't help you. So just simplify what we're talking about there. But, with the book, again, very low in ideation, but good idea, activate, maximize, achieve. So most people write books and they're meaningless because there's no meaning behind it. So very grateful. Chris Voss wrote Never Split the Difference. Did the forward. If you haven't interviewed him for your show, that'd be a good one. That'd be really interesting.
Oh, I'd love to. If maybe you'll make the introduction for me.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'll do that after this. That'd be a good. It's an international bestseller in 6 countries, #1 for entrepreneurship in the U.S. So I'm very grateful for that. But it's a key that opens up endless doors. It came out in May of last year. I still do 2 to 3 media interviews a week for it, and I'm working on my second book as the new company gets going, and that'll be fun. But to simplify it, most people, they can't even think of becoming Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, and frankly, I can't either. I don't even. That's not me. They don't want that, but they can picture being someone like me, where you see your family whenever you want to. You do what you like to do, what you're good at. I have zero business. I still don't have much business background, but so they're like, "How did you do this?" And so, just like my dad's diary, it's just boom, 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 boom. 30 things that I learned in the company's first 30 months from 30 people like you, and then I just actually did something about it. So that's what it's about. It's very short read, and it just answers solves the problem. So result.
It's really great to hear you talk about it. And I think maybe that's why it is resonating with so many people, is that simplicity and how it does kind of lay out solving problems. So again, just love the fact that you're just taking your unique ability, you're just naturally being yourself, and you're putting it out in the world in all kinds of ways that are resonating with people. And I think that's really the thing that, really strikes me the most, that I want people to hear, is that you don't have to be some Steve Jobs. You don't have to have some, change the world idea in the way that you're thinking of it. That you can actually have a massive impact on a large number of people just by bringing yourself forward into the world. And I think that takes some courage for a lot of people. It has for me, even doing this show, people, what's Brett doing? And, that's weird, whatever the kind of, initial reactions might be, ultimately at the end of the day, I'm just kind of doing what I used to do over coffee. And now I'm sharing it with other people, and people are getting something out of it. So it can be that simple. And look, I don't push a button. I've got a great team that's behind the scenes doing all the stuff that would drive me nuts.
There were 75 people on this calendar item. Like, well, there's your Colby. I just clicked the button. Here we are.
Yeah. Well, Justin, it's great to be friends and to know you and to watch what you're up to. And any final thoughts you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I'll introduce you to Brandon Voss right after this. But
great.
There's this amazing life out there. There's this amazing life out there for people that have the courage to find it. And if you have the courage to find it, if anyone can do this, if I can do this. Hopefully I serve as some sort of template for people who are thinking about doing it. And then one more simplification, is if you have the right mindset, it attracts the right network and creates the right opportunities. So every single day, every day, I'm constantly working on my mindset to attract cooler and cooler people who will create the opportunities for me. Thanks.
Yeah, I love it. It all does start with that mindset, and your kind of approach to just kind of getting things done, one thing after the next, just do and kind of keep that mindset, and then looking back and seeing the results. It's pretty awesome. So, Justin, thanks again. I enjoyed the conversation as always. It's great to have you on the show.
Tremendous interview. You do a great job. You're a natural at this, and looking forward to more collaboration in the future.